This is ICASTnews.com, live and direct from United Nations headquarters in New York City. And this is heat in the Middle East. The long winter into spring, when a strange crop, not war, not peace, but a cessation of hostilities, engineered by Staffan de Mistura from the United Nations, Secretary of State John Kerry, and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The cessation of hostilities in this cold period into spring is about to bear a bumper crop of violence and bloodshed and more death in the 5-year-old struggle that is the civil war in Syria. The cessation of hostilities has delivered in the past week some wonderful news and some much needed supplies. In East Harasta, 11 kilometers east of Damascus, a farm town, 10,000 people who've been cut off for 3 years, living without running water, living without electricity, living without anything in the way of food supplies except what they could grow. Their isolation was broken. They ended a blockade, and the United Nations Relief Agency brought a whole convoy of troops and white vehicles in with supplies, with kerosene, with oil, with cooking goods. In other places in this province, the United Nations has delivered surgical supplies and medical supplies, badly needed by people, 25,000 people who've been cut off for years. However, Daesh, what some people call the Islamic State, the ISIL or ISIS, has been on the offensive. They have raided Jableh and Tartus. Car bombs have exploded there at bus stations, targeting not only people who live in these Alawite, that's the minority community that strongly supports the strongman in power there. Not only have they targeted part of the usual population of Alawatistan, but more importantly, they have thrown terror into the lives of ordinary Syrians because these places on the coast were thought safe. Even more shockingly, 4 big M-24 helicopters, the backbone of the Russian Air Force in the middle of Syria, when these things that my Russian friends call letuchkaya tanki, flying tanks, or sometimes they call them krokodili, crocodiles. NATO calls them Hinds or Super Hinds. Apparently, 4 of these were attacked by the Islamic State in some kind of raid. We know this because satellite imagery provided by Stratfor, which looks down, can show us from one day till the other, from the 13th of May till the 17th of May. And we can see now where those tanks were sitting, where those flying tanks were sitting on the runway, are scorch marks. Experts at Stratfor say this doesn't look like random explosions. This looks like an attack using shoulder-fired rockets to destroy this workhorse of the attack squadrons that are in central Syria. The Russian military is saying that these are old pictures and that they lost no boys in these battles, but that doesn't ring true to the evidence we have seen. Additionally, now, if you take another look at the map, look over in central Syria to a place called Al-Raqqa. We hear that Al-Raqqa is about to be attacked by the Department of Defense. The Pentagon says the Combined Joint Task Force Operation Inherent Resolve, the Kurdish-Arabic alliance of the surge of Syrian democratic forces, is going to retake this town, this city that has been in the hands of Daesh. More bloodshed. So however much there's going to be a continuation of this cessation of hostilities, the rule has been that the al-Nusra Front and Daesh were not included in any of these discussions. No matter how hard Sergei Lavrov and Secretary of State Kerry are fighting to keep the cessation going, their forces, Russian forces and American forces, both have troops, small numbers of troops in this area, and both are doing things to begin a spring, early summer campaign to try and diminish the size of the Islamic State of Daesh. But as the size of Daesh gets limited in scope, they're adopting other tactics. The attack on Jableh and Tartus, where the Russians have a naval base, is sending a shock through Syria and Syria watchers, because these towns on the coast were thought to be part of the very safe heartland, difficult for terrorists to penetrate. The most shocking thing may be if in Tartus these weren't smuggled in car bombs, but made on the scene car bombs, which means Alawatistan, the area of what remains of Syria, and it's hard to think of Syria except as a very dismembered Indonesia-like state with different islands of different ethnicities all over the place. Not the Syria drawn on maps, but the Syria of different sectors. If the part that is most loyal to the incumbent regime is suffering these attacks, what will come next? And what are the fruits of this remarkable cessation of hostilities that's been going on since the 27th of February? But now the other side, the chickens are coming home to roost. The attacks on Daesh, on the Islamic State, are making the Islamic State take up other kinds of tactics. Car bombs in the heart of the Alawite-controlled part of Syria. An attack on Russia's symbol of its military force itself. It could have been worse. They could have killed Russian boys. Maybe they did kill some and we're not being told the truth. They could have attacked some of the Su-22 and Su-24 planes there. Apparently they did not. But getting 4 crocodiles, getting 4 flying tanks, and of course we hear that they also destroyed a bunch, maybe 20 Russian trucks. This is a change in the war, the civil war that's been going on in Syria. A civil war that, however much people want to ignore it, has been destabilizing Europe by sending millions of people there as migrants. A civil war in which 500,000 or more people have died. A civil war in which a remarkable feat of pulling out chemical weapons was accomplished by the joint efforts of the United States and Russia. And a war which is harder and harder to ignore every day. For ICASTnews.com, live and direct from United Nations headquarters, for heat in the Middle East, watching the war in Syria, I'm Jonathan Sanders.